In front of me are some of my favorite grains, and grains are classified as the seeds of edible grasses. They are extremely healthy, and they nourish more people in the world than any other food. They can be incorporated into salads, into soups, into baked goods, and even breakfast cereals. And with so many grains available, I thought I'd share some of my favorites with you. We have bulgur. Bulgur has a chewy texture with a slight hazelnut flavor. And it's made from the crushed wheat kernels that are steamed and dried during processing. And this is farro. It has a dense, chewy structure and a rich, nutty flavor. It's an ancient cereal grain belonging to the wheat family, and it's also known as emmer wheat. Millet is a staple for almost 1/3 of the world's population. Millet is an ancient grain eaten as a cooked cereal, in bread, or in place of rice. And it's mostly used in China, Africa, India, in curries, stews, stuffings. Pearl barley dates back to the Stone Age and is one of the oldest cultivated cereals. And pearl barley is a polished form of barley with the hull and the bran removed. It has a chewy texture and a slightly sweet flavor. This is yellow polenta. It's also known as cornmeal, and it's made from dried corn ground into various degrees of fineness. It is boiled with water to make a porridge known as soft polenta, and it comes in yellow and in white. White polenta is also known as hominy grits, and it's made from hominy, which is the dried corn kernel with the hull and the germ removed, and then it's coarsely ground into meal. And it's oftentimes served as a cereal or a side dish, and it can be cooked with water or milk. Spelt is an ancient variety of wheat whose brown, small grains can be cooked like rice or ground into flour for baking. It has a somewhat nutty flavor, and it's rather mild. Wheat berries are whole, unprocessed kernels of wheat. They can be served as a hot cereal, in a pilaf, or added to bread. And these are 3 different kinds of quinoa: a black quinoa, red quinoa, or white quinoa. It's a small bead-shaped seed with white or red or black kernels, as you can see, and it is very high in protein and commonly eaten in Colombia, Argentina, and Chile. And this is buckwheat. It's commonly thought of as a cereal, but it's actually a seed, and the seeds are actually the fruits of an annual herbaceous plant related to rhubarb that was cultivated in China. It was brought to Russia, where it has become their staple food. And what's really interesting about these grains is that they are nutritional staples that for much of the world provide the largest share of calories and nutrients. And today I'm going to take several of these grains and turn them into wonderful recipes. Now here's a really easy salad, and it's called tabbouleh. It's a Middle Eastern favorite made of bulgur wheat with chopped tomatoes, onions, parsley, mint, olive oil, and lemon juice. And it is a healthy and simple salad to make. So to start, you plump the tabbouleh. This is the bulgur, and just cover it with water, like that. And let it sit until all the water is absorbed into the bulgur. And bulgur cooks quickly, as you can see, and it has a persistent chewiness. So now, here's some bulgur that has been soaked for 10 minutes in hot water, and drain it. Let's see. There may be a little bit of excess liquid here. So drain it in a strainer like this. This wonderful tabbouleh is served everywhere in the Middle East, as sandwiches and pita breads, as a salad. So just shake out all the excess liquid. My mom used to stuff cabbage with this. It was very good. And because it has a wheat germ, which is the very center of the wheat berry, it should be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator or in your freezer. So there, we've gotten that little tiny bit of moisture out. This can now be put into a big mixing bowl in which we're going to toss our salad. Now, it's the preparation really of all the other ingredients that might actually take a little bit of time. 10 minutes to plump the bulgur, and then maybe a few minutes to chop 2 medium tomatoes. You can seed the tomatoes if you like, and just chop them into 1/4-inch pieces. Now already, doesn't that look pretty? Cucumber, 1 long cucumber, seeds removed. This is a crunchy, delicious, flavorful salad. It's so amazing. 1 cup of scallions, the green and white part of the scallions, and again, finely, finely chopped. Smelling fresher and fresher. Oh, and this, you have to have at least 1 cup of parsley. Seems like a lot, but actually I don't think you can have enough parsley in a salad like this. And mint, a 1/2 cup of chopped mint. Fresh, beautiful mint. There's lots of different kinds of mint, so there's some of them are way too strong for salads. So taste the mint. I think the spearmint is a lot better than the strong peppermint. And now don't put any of these things in the food processor. This should be a hand-chopped salad. It will look better. It will taste better. I think that's fine enough. Get that right in. And now for the lemon juice. Add the juice of 2 lemons. These are giant lemons. I should probably be having a larger squeezer. The lemon juice keeps all the herbs and tomatoes as fresh as can be. And now add 1/3 of a cup of very tasty olive oil. Now, doesn't that look good? Add some salt and pepper. Black pepper is good. And in a matter of minutes, you have a wonderful fresh salad. Beautiful, shiny, glistening, and very tasty. It's very delicious. This tiny little grain is called quinoa, and it is tiny, but it is mighty. It contains a tremendous amount of protein. It's considered a complete protein because it contains all 8 essential amino acids, and it's also higher in unsaturated fats and lower in carbohydrates than most other grains. While many times it's served in savory side dishes, quinoa makes a wonderful hot breakfast cereal. And I thought I'd show you how to use it. This is white quinoa. And the first thing to do is wash the grains. Just run some cold water on the grains and put it in a strainer. The seeds are covered with a layer of saponin, which is a bitter soapy resin that forms a lather on contact with water, and it should be washed off. This is to keep insects away from the grain itself. And these are actually the fruit of a plant that belongs to the same family as beets, chard, and spinach. So here we have the quinoa, all rinsed, and now we can start making our wonderful cereal. 2 cups of milk, which we're going to bring to a boil. Milk comes to a boil rather rapidly, and we're going to add the quinoa to the boiling milk. And we should also have, for the cereal, brown sugar, cinnamon, and some fruit, whichever fruit you want to use, like blueberries, raspberries. Okay, it's just coming to a boil, and we're going to add the quinoa to the milk. This is going to expand to 4 times the original volume. So make sure you have a large enough pot. Stir it in well. And another very nice feature about quinoa is that it is gluten-free. So with so many people suffering from gluten intolerance, this is a great source, not only of protein, but also of magnesium, iron, and potassium. So turn this down to a simmer and cook until the quinoa is thick and plump. After 10 minutes, add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar and a little bit of cinnamon to taste. About 1/8 of a teaspoon. Quinoa is relatively new to the American market, but it was a favorite grain of the ancient Incas who used it for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now simmer that 8 minutes longer. So now 18 minutes are up, the quinoa is done, and you can serve it. What a very healthy and delicious breakfast. If it's a little thick, you can add a little bit more milk, even heavy cream. But this is a gluten-free breakfast that everyone in your family will enjoy. A little bit more milk. A sprinkling of berries. Raisins would be delicious. Raspberries, blackberries. A healthy, delicious, and nutritious breakfast cereal. Enjoy. Now this is yellow polenta, which is a staple of northern Italian cooking. And it's coarsely ground cornmeal that's very slowly cooked on top of the stove. And the cooking method, I think, is pretty similar to risotto, with frequent stirrings and incremental additions of liquid. And it can be used immediately, or it can be allowed to set and cut into shapes, which can then be sautéed or grilled or baked. So I'm going to show you both ways. But first we're going to cook the polenta. Bring to a boil 6 cups of water. Add 1 tablespoon of salt to the boiling water. And with a whisk, stir the water while you slowly add the polenta. It's very important not to add it all in one big fell swoop because you might get a big lump. And this is good to just keep adding it gradually. Once it's all incorporated into the water, then you can change to a wooden spoon because this is going to get too thick for a whisk. And adjust the heat so that those little volcanic eruptions don't occur because it can splatter all over the kitchen. And water is the most common liquid to cook polenta in. But for a richer, more flavorful polenta, replace all or some of the water with chicken stock or vegetable stock. For a creamier consistency, substitute half the water with milk, preferably whole milk. Very nice. Don't let it get too thick before you start to add a ladle of water. Add boiling water and continue to stir. And for the most flavorful polenta, choose stone ground cornmeal. It includes fragments of the germ, which is the center of the corn kernel, and also the seed coat. So have patience, add the water slowly, and make sure you adjust the heat so that it is simmering but not erupting. This is something you do not walk away from, so be prepared to spend about 45 minutes at the stove. It's not necessary to stir it constantly, but just frequently. Now it's been 45 minutes. Look how thick and beautiful. Turn off the heat and add 2 tablespoons of butter right into the hot polenta. This just adds that little bit of flavor that makes the polenta utterly delicious. Okay, so now add a little bit of pepper. I'm going to add white pepper to my polenta. Stir it in, and it's ready to serve. Now, it can be served like a cereal in bowls, or it can be served as a side dish. This looks so good. Isn't that yummy? Grate a little bit of Parmesan cheese over the top, and you have a really tasty side dish. Very delicious and nutritious. I can eat a big bowl of this. So serve it soft as soon as it's ready. It will thicken as it cools. Now I want to show you what to do with the leftover polenta. Don't leave it in the pot. It will thicken up and solidify, and you're going to be left with just a mess in this pot. So we're going to spoon it out onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. This is a very good thing to do with polenta. You'll have something nice to put out on the grill and chilled. This is so solid that it will cut into squares or rectangles or triangles. Put it right on the grill with a little bit of olive oil. Get that right into the refrigerator until it's firm. Now the polenta has set up very nicely. It's been chilled. Now invert this right onto a board, cutting board. And that's what it looks like. Take the paper off. Don't forget. And I'm heating a little bit of olive oil in a nonstick pan. And you can cut this into 4-inch squares this way. And then this way in half. And then cut the halves into triangles. Heat these. It's very tasty. And you want to brown it a little bit on both sides in your skillet. 2 minutes per side is just fine. And once it's heated through and a little crispy brown, arrange it neatly on a plate. Top with a little bit of fresh ricotta. This is homemade ricotta. It is so delicious. And some oven roasted tomatoes. On the stem, I love these. Drizzled with a little bit of balsamic vinegar and a little fleur de sel. And if you like, a little drizzling of balsamic vinegar and oil. Enjoy. So now this is farro. It's an ancient cereal grain belonging to the wheat family. And it dates back, well, about 20,000 years and was the primary grain cultivated by the early Egyptians. And it has a rich, nutty flavor, and it can be used in salads, soups, stews. And because it has low gluten content, it's often favored by people who can't eat wheat. I'd like to share with you a salad using farro and oven-roasted grapes, which you will find utterly delicious. So first things first, 8 ounces of farro and water to cover. Cover the farro by about 2 inches. Now this is a whole grain, and whole grain farro is more nutritious since the bran is still intact. And to this, add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Bring this to a boil and cook for approximately 25 minutes, stirring every now and then. And now we're going to prepare onions. We're going to slice 1/4 of an inch thick. 2 red onions. If you have a nice sharp knife, this is not a difficult task. Put a little olive oil on a cookie sheet and place your onions on the tray. A little bit more olive oil on top, salt and pepper. And this goes in the bottom of a 425-degree oven. Now the salad also has delicious oven-roasted grapes. Again, some olive oil. And we're going to use 1.5 pounds of grapes. Oh, I still have a few more here. No stems, just the grapes themselves. And I don't know if you've ever roasted grapes like this, but they are delicious. They exude their sugars, their natural sugars, and in combination with salt and pepper and olive oil, they are utterly delicious. You can use green or red grapes. The red look real pretty in the salad. And if you can buy organic grapes, the best. And sprinkle with 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And these go in the top of the preheated oven. It's like dealing with a lot of marbles. And during the roasting, you're going to turn these every 15 minutes. And they're going to stay in the oven for about 45 minutes. Now the farro has cooked. Look how plump it is. So this goes into a strainer in your sink. and really drain it well. So beautiful. And add 1 tablespoon of salt. Sounds like a lot, but it needs it. So pretty. And now add your beautiful grapes, which have cooled out of the oven. This is what happens to them. They get syrupy and beautiful. And they are just so delicious. Wait till you taste them. Like candy. Savory candy. And get all the juices too. You could probably use sour cherries. And we have our onion. Look how gorgeous they look. Just perfectly cooked. And just put those 2 into the salad. And I like to toss it with a rubber spatula like this. And now add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Make sure you have a nice flavorful red wine vinegar. And I'm not going to add any more salt until I taste. And add 4 cups of mixed baby kale right into. Now make sure it's washed really well and dried. You don't want any excess moisture. And toss. This incorporates very nicely, and it is a wonderful luncheon salad. Great as first course at night, part of a buffet. You will really love this salad. And turn that right out onto a serving platter. It's glistening, it's tender, it's fragrant, and it is tasty. Serve this with some goat cheese on the side. You could also crumble some goat cheese over the top. But I'm going to leave it just like this because it is so beautiful. And there you have it, farro. Grains are essential to a healthy diet. I hope today's lesson has inspired you to try some new recipes and possibly some new grains. Experiment. You will make a healthier meal for your family. See you next time on Martha's Cooking School. For video